Two balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swing and a drive, deep left field. This is way back. Walk the ball. Chris Taylor.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined by one of our excellent writers, Scott Geirman. This morning, we're talking Dodgers baseball. It's the All-Star break. We're going to be recapping the first half and all that. But, Scott, we finally get a little bit of a breather here. It feels like a baseball game every night. Today, we get to take a deep breath. We got the Home Run Derby, the All-Star game. Dodgers not back in action until Thursday. I'll start with a big-picture question for you. First half just ended. How are we feeling?
Feeling pretty good, you know. It feels like they had a little bit of a lull in the middle where it felt like, you know, when one side of the teeter-totter was going up, the other one was kind of going down a little bit. And it feels like this final little run they went on, that Cardinal series really showed a lot about what this team has like underneath. And that just, you know, that took it over for me. I'm feeling really confident going into the second half.
Yeah, baseball is such a funny sport because there are so many games and they are so long that it gives you so much time to just sort of sit and marinate in whatever you are watching and overanalyze and critique and that kind of a thing. And yet the beauty of something like an All-Star break is it's 4 or 5 days without any baseball games where you get to step back and say to yourself, how are things actually going? Like, instead of overreacting to a random Thursday night blown save, let's look at 90 games of sample size and see what happens. And you know what, Scott? I agree with you. The Dodgers are 60-30. They have a 10-game lead in the division. Let me repeat that. A 10-game lead in the NL West over the Padres. They have the best record in the National League by 3.5 games. They enter the All-Star break with what I believe is a tie for the most All-Stars in franchise history, with Freddie Freeman and Tyler Anderson getting added. And so I look at all that, and you and I are going to get into the minutia. We're going to talk observations. We're going to talk trade needs, all that kind of stuff in this show. But I feel like it's worth, Scott, starting and just saying, this team is 60-30. They're winning 2/3 of their game. They are on pace for what would be a franchise record number of wins. And I want us to be able to stop and appreciate that for a second.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it feels like we have this conversation a lot every year, but there's a little different confidence this time around because the injuries that happened feel like they're not having as big of a blow because just like we talked about earlier in the year, the back end of that rotation was always a question mark. And then it was, who can we call up to eat some innings? The guys that are eating innings are all-stars.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. And the Dodgers have won, you know, I think 21 games by 5 runs or more. They're just on a pace that we just haven't seen. And the bats that we've really had to lean on, we'll get to this more later in the show, but the bats that usually have been a lot of the heart of the order in the past are kind of struggling right now. And it's the top end and the bottom half that are really getting it going.
Yeah, it is interesting because the guys that, if I said we were 60-30, 10 games up in the division, and I said, give me the guys who made the All-Star team, we'd be wrong on a lot of those predictions. There'd be a lot of people predicting Walker Buehler would be carrying the team. A lot of people predicting Julio Urias would be carrying the team. A lot of people predicting Max Muncie, Justin Turner, Chris Taylor, those types of guys. Blake Trinan would be carrying the team. None of the guys that I just mentioned are all-stars. So here's the plan for today's show. Scott and I are going to talk about 6 observations, 3 apiece from the first half. What are the huge storylines that have happened that also, you know, might leak into the second half of the season? We're going to talk about trade needs. Obviously, the trade deadline just a couple weeks away. Dodgers always in the mix. Do they need an arm? Do they need a bat? We'll get to that. Of course, Juan Soto, that story is dominating headlines right now. So we'll get into, is there such thing as giving up too much for Juan Soto? And then we'll end with a little rapid fire predictions for the rest of the season. Before we get into observations, though, let me just run down real quick. I think this is a helpful exercise to just pause 90 games in, a little bit more than halfway, and say, who are the Dodgers that are leading particular categories? You look at wins above replacement, Freddie Freeman, 4.3, Trey Turner, 3.8, Mookie, 3.3. You're going to hear a lot about those 3 guys as we continue to go through this season. Through this show. OPS, Freddie Freeman, 926. Home runs, Mookie Betts, 20. This one surprised me. Do you know, Scott, who leads the Dodgers in RBIs this season?
Is it Justin Turner?
Trey Turner. Trey Turner has 68 RBIs.
Trey
68
Turner,
RBIs in 90 games. Crazy.
Right.
You're going to talk a little bit about that, about why that is the top of the order with so much. Mookie Betts leads the team in runs with 63. On the pitching side, this might surprise some people. Who leads it? Scott, do you know who leads the Dodgers pitchers in wins above replacement?
I I mean, Tony Gonsolin, it's got to be right.
Tony Gonsolin's third. Clayton Kershaw, according to
Wow.
Fangraphs, first in wins above replacement, 2.2. Tyler Anderson, 2.1. Gonsolin, 1.7. Urias, 1.4. You look at ERA, Gonsolin, 2.02, leads the starters. The relief pitchers, it's not Evan Phillips, who has the best ERA. It's Yency Almonte, who's got a 1.40. Phillips not far behind, 1.50. Caleb Ferguson, I think, is at 0, but hasn't pitched all that much. Tony Gonsolin, 11 wins. Julio Urias, 94 strikeouts. Tyler Anderson, 97.1 innings pitched. And everybody's favorite, Craig Kimbrell, leads the team in saves with 15. But, Scott, let's jump into some observations, storylines from the first half. And I'll start off, and it's a bunch of the sort of touching on a theme that we just mentioned. And the first observation I have is the Dodgers scouting and player development keeps on cranking. We just talked about, if the Dodgers, you had been told, were 10 games up in the division, 90 games into the season, and I said they have 6 All-Stars, we all probably would have been wrong on about 4 of those guys. And it's because of this group, the Dodgers scouting and player development. Walker Buehler, hurt and disappointing. Blake Trinan, hurt. Justin Turner, picking it up of late, I would say getting close to about average. Max Muncy, disappointing. Cody Bellinger continues to disappoint. Chris Taylor, injured. And yet, 6 All-Stars. Why is that? Because Tony Gonsolin and Tyler Anderson and guys like that have been unbelievable for the Dodgers. People want to talk about all the money the Dodgers spent. But, Scott, I would argue that what makes this team so great, this organization great, is this. It's finding Tyler Anderson off the scrap heap and making him an all-star. Finding Evan Phillips, helping him become one of the best relievers in the league. It's drafting Tony Gonsolin, 281st overall, and turning him into an all-star. Yency Almonte, scrapped by one of the worst teams in baseball, the Colorado Rockies. The Dodgers bring him in, 1.40 ERA. And so you're seeing these guys contribute, not as off-the-bench players, not as, spot starters, but as real deal guys. And so from my perspective, it has to start with, holy crap, are Andrew Friedman and his crew good at what they do, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's so much to it, and the Dodgers organization, and finding out what these guys do right, and understanding that Tyler Anderson has one of the best changeups in all of baseball.
Yeah.
One that Clayton Kershaw even, talks about all the time. He wishes he could throw. And it's remarkable every year that they do this. And it's just a big wow moment to me, that another year where it feels like a lot of the culmination of what they've been looking for, working for, that these guys are doing what they aren't being leaned on as much. They're just supplemental pieces. And it feels like a lot of it is coming together at the right time. And I'm just so happy that Yency Almonte is a Dodger, and he's thriving because he loves this team. You see him all the time on social media, and it's fantastic.
Well, and I could keep going. I mean, Will Smith is a draft pick that they have developed into one of the best players in all of baseball. Austin Barnes, if you're an Austin Barnes guy, was acquired and developed. Cody Bellinger was drafted and developed. Clayton Kershaw was drafted and developed. And so there are guys like Freddie Freeman, who they go out and sign in free agency, Mookie Betts, who they acquire via trade, Trey Turner, who they acquire via trade. And even the trades, you could say the reason they're able to acquire those guys is because of how good they are at drafting and developing, acquiring pieces that they can then ship out. But I just think when Tony Gonsolin and Tyler Anderson and Evan Phillips are sort of the headliners of a season like it has been thus far, that's where I wanted to start with observation number 1. So these aren't in any particular order. It's not observation 1 is more important than observation 3, but that's my first observation. Scott, your first observation on the first 90 games of the Dodgers season is what?
We are who we know they are. They are a dominant team in the majors, and they have, I would say, arguably the best 1-2, group of superstars in the game. And they are gelling, and it's really hard to find a weakness on them. We'll get to that later. I'm just incredibly confident. What they need to be doing, looking at the National League and how pretty top heavy it is throughout the divisions, I would say they're doing exactly what they need to do to stand up against the American League, which is, there's a lot of parity in the American League. But the Dodgers, what they're doing right now is they're dominating, and that's what they have to keep doing, to keep pace, for October.
Yeah, and it's the guys at the top of the order, I know, is sort of what has caught your attention. It's Mookie Betts, it's Trey Turner, it's Freddie Freeman. So all 3 of those guys currently in the top 10 in the National League in wins above replacement. Freeman is 5th, Turner is 6th, Mookie is 10th. So talk to me a little bit about what you've seen from those 3.
All right. So, A lot of people like to. I know I like to harp on batting average and it not being that important, but I'll say this. This year, the top three in the batting order combining, like any order, when they flipped, when they put Trey Turner up to the 2-hole, everybody's kind of taken a little bit of a boost. They've become one of the best trios in baseball. I think Freddie Freeman, his numbers are significantly better with runners on base, and putting two guys that are basically and can be incredible leadoff hitters right in front of him is even better, regardless of the righty, right, left, however you want to look at it. I think Doc has it correct, and they're thriving. So the top three in the batting order is combining for a 295 average this year. Last year it was 266. So you're getting there up there. They're hitting at a high clip. They're run producing. They're slugging, and they're not striking out, which is fantastic. I think they have the lowest strikeouts, since they've made that switch to the 1, 2, 3 in the batting order. I think it's the July 3rd game that Mookie came back, or July 2nd game Mookie came back. They have the least strikeouts in that little span. Small sample size, but it's telling. It just shows that plate discipline is there. They're all top three, or that top three in the batting order is top three in batting average, RBI, extra base hits, with runners on base. I looked up, they have a 154 WRC plus with runners on.
Yeah.
And it's just, they've got it right now. This is exactly what they've needed. This top three won't be striking out.
Yeah.
Down the stretch that will play. And when you need your big bats to produce, they're doing exactly that. And when you can't afford to strike out, they're not doing that. So this is different. This is a different top three in the order that we've seen in quite some time.
Well, let me ask one quick follow-up. Should we be talking about a top four? Because I said they've got three guys in the top 10. Mm-hmm. Will Smith's 13th in the National League in wins above replacement. He's hitting 272 with the 364 on base, 478 slug, 14 home runs. We know he started slowly, but do you think it's fair to include him in that group with the top three? Is it really a top four that we should be talking about?
Oh, absolutely. He's benefiting. Since they put him right there, he's absolutely benefiting from Freddie Freeman right in front of him, 100%. And I like that, he says that Will Smith says he's not, isn't benefiting or isn't, using a little bit of the fuel for an all-star snub, but he's been crushing it. And he's maturing as a hitter right in front of us. And he came out of nowhere, player development. It's not that he wasn't supposed to be this. It's that they had, Ruiz on the farm ready to, seemingly to be their future. And Will Smith said, this is my spot. And he's as good as it gets. I think he's the best offensive catcher in the game. And I don't really think it's particularly close. I know that Contreras is having a fantastic season, and hats off to him. He's amazing. But I think Will Smith's the best hitting catcher in all of baseball.
Yeah, I mean, so if you want to look at Smith versus Contreras, Smith has more home runs. He has a higher batting average, a higher on-base percentage. Excuse me, his on-base percentage is .002 lower, and he's got a higher slugging percentage as well. I mean, Will Smith, you look at the Fangraphs leaders in wins above replacement. He's 13th. Josh Bell is 15th. Juan Soto is 16th. Real Muto is 17th. Contreras is 18th. I mean, you go down that list, and it's like, you can't argue. By the way, a guy we're going to talk about here in a second is Gavin Lux, who's 22nd on this list in all of the National League in wins above replacement. But for me, I think Will Smith, look, we know as Dodger fans, we appreciate him. But all this guy does is hit, and he comes through in the biggest moments. People hate my nickname. I started calling him the janitor because all he does is clean up. All he does is clean up. He's just cleaning up the bases. But I love Will Smith. I'm bummed he didn't make the All-Star team. I thought when the game came out, people were probably surprised that I was somewhat defending the decision, because I thought at the time, when you factor in all the things at work, you could make sense of it. I didn't like it, but you could make sense of it. Of course, since that decision, the irony of this is they make the decision and then guys keep playing for like 10 more days. And now Will Smith is better than all of these guys in every single category. He had 4 hits the other night. So I'm with you. The top of the order dominating is key. Now, I believe you wanted to connect this to other parts of the lineup that are either thriving or not thriving. Is that fair? Or do you want to save that one for later?
No, I'd love to talk about Gavin Lux. Can I do one more thing about Will Smith real fast?
Yeah, please.
So
you're never going to get you tell me you want to talk about Will Smith, Scott. I will say yes every time.
The janitor. I love that. I'm going to remember that. So, what's incredible about him is that not only is he slugging, he's the most patient hitter in the league.
Yeah.
And that's just, Dodger fans are so spoiled. They want to remember, Mike Piazza and how incredible he was. they need to understand that Will Smith, it might be better offensively. I think he already is better offensively than Mike Piazza.
Yeah.
It's just that he's just hidden behind, Trey Turner, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman. We had Corey Seager, all these guys. Yeah. And that Will Smith has produced in the biggest moments, like 97th percentile chase rate, 89th percentile whiff rate. This guy does not strike out. He does not chase, and all he does is slug.
Yeah. No, I think it's fair. I mean, I saw some stats about like Buster Posey's career up until this point versus Will Smith's up until this point, and Smith matched up favorably, if not better, in most of those categories. All right, let me get to my second observation, and it's a guy that I know you and I have talked a lot about. It's Gavin Lux. My second observation is the Gavin Lux breakout. Now, I'm going to be honest. He ended the season a bit of a dip. The last 5 games are not helping my cause here. 1 for 13 over his last 5, but he finishes the season, the first half, with a .292 batting average, .369 on base percentage, .415 slugging percentage. As I said, he's 21st, 22nd in wins above replacement in the National League. The on-base percentage is 18th in all of baseball. He's 5th on the team in wins above replacement among hitters. And look, I'm not saying Gavin Lux is going to become a perennial all-star. I'm not saying he's going to become a superstar. Okay, I know many people had that in their minds when he was a top 5 prospect in baseball. But what Gavin Lux has shown me this year is that he's got a major league career ahead of him, and he's going to be a competent, contributing Major League Baseball player for a long time. The type of guy that gets paid a lot of money. I think he's going to be in the Chris Taylor type tier, and you see what those guys make on the open market. Some StatCast numbers to throw at you. The barrel rate is up from 3.9% to 6.7%. Strikeout rate is down 4%. Walk rate is up 0.5%. The whiff rate has improved against fastballs, breaking balls, and off-speed pitches. And you mentioned a chase rate stat, which I like as well. He's in the 91st percentile for chase rate. He knows his role. He's been solid to above average defensively, I would say, as long as they have kept him out of the outfield, which I still hold on to a tiny bit of hope he can figure out if he ever gets trained out there. Yeah. But again, I'm not saying Gavin Lux is a superstar. I'm not saying he deserves to be an all-star. I'm just saying Gavin Lux is hitting .292 with a .370 on base percentage. We got to recognize that and say, for a guy that a lot of people had counted out, good for him.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at the, number 9 hole in the batting order, you tend to see like, yeah, you're trying to bury a guy. No. Yeah. The Dodgers look at him as another leadoff hitter, and he's 124 WRC plus in the 9 hole. He's one of the most valuable 9 hitters in the league.
Yeah,
he gives.
He's got to be the most. I mean, I don't look at other lineups. I'd be shocked if there's another team that's got a guy as good as him. He's batting in the top 3 for every other team in the league.
Without a doubt, he's jumped. He's shut me up absolutely, and that's okay. And I'm totally okay saying that because the improvements that he's made and how, I remember I saw that one of the biggest improvements he had was, he's killing the breaking ball. And if he starts catching up to fastballs and his plate discipline has gone through the roof, and that's incredible. So, Gavin Lux, just like you said, put him in the outfield, and that's rough. But, he's so athletic, it's a work in progress, and that's okay. How often can you just tell a guy, go play the outfield? Your athleticism will take over when you've been an infielder the whole time. That's a hard swap, especially at the big league level. Just go out there and do it. Yeah. But his stuff at the plate, his speed, and he's got great instincts on the base paths, and he's not afraid to push it. And I love that.
Yeah, I mean, and let's keep in mind this is a guy who's 24 years old. We are quick to forget how young this guy is. Yeah. I think it was Fabian Ardaya who had a great piece of The Athletic saying that, like, hey, he focused on the beginning of season, a bat to ball, putting the ball in play, reaching for average, and now he's starting to pick his spots and trying to figure out, okay, when can I let loose a swing and just really rip it and try and, boost that slugging percentage a little bit. We've seen that over the last couple of weeks, and so we'll see. I don't know what's sustainable because I mentioned a lot of StatCast stuff. Some of the StatCast stuff isn't great for Gavin Lux. Exit velocity is down, hard hit percentage is down, so I don't know what to make of all this. But even if it's not quite this good, even if it's 270 and not 290, even if it's 350 instead of 370 in the on base percentage, that's more than competent for a guy who's on a cheap deal who can play a competent second base for you. So Gavin Lux breaking out is my second observation. All right, your second observation, you want to talk a little bit about the bullpen and versatility back there. So what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so one of the silver linings of Craig Kimbrell kind of struggling this year is putting different arms in situations that would be very pivotal, that you've seen teams at other teams like the Atlanta Braves. You have Matzik, you have oh my goodness, the other lefty. I always forget his name. They've got that a bunch of trio out there. But Will Smith, he's great. There's one more I'm forgetting, but they have a couple guys that they can throw in at the back end of the game, and they're comfortable with that. Yeah. Well, the Dodgers are really starting to get out in front of that, and it's important. You know, Yency Almonte, Evan Phillips, he's a dog. That's my guy. I love him. He's one of the nicest interviews in baseball. Alex Vesia, he's got closer stuff, and he's another one of the guys. Player development, find him out of the scrap heap, find out what he does well. And Caleb Ferguson, I think he can be that guy. Yeah. They're putting Craig Kimbrell has to work through things, and I still think that. Though there's a ton of metrics, and like the dude has a FIP of like, oh my goodness, sub 2. He's still can be an elite closer. I'm gonna hang on that all year. I don't care.
You and me, we're gonna be hanging off the back of that bandwagon until it stops.
Yeah, other writer Blake Williams. You know, we can all be in the front of that. You know, just leading that charge, and I think it will be valuable down the stretch to put the bullpen in advantageous spots. In that, I don't think that this year they're going to be so dead set on, forcing Craig Kimbrell in the 9th inning and lock that in. And we saw it the other day. Craig Kimbrell in the 8th. What did he do? Come in and he, went right through it. In the 9th inning, they came in. Evan Phillips shut it down. And they've just got a bunch of versatility that they haven't had in years past. And nothing away from Kenley Jansen. I miss Kenley. But I think versatility will matter. I think being able to plug different guys in different spots will matter. And it's just something that we just haven't seen in quite a little bit of time with the Dodgers. We've talked about it and how, versatility will be, other guys can do it. But it's unfortunate that Daniel Hudson's down. He was, fantastic. I was really looking forward to Canely. And we're getting Trinan back. Yeah. And everybody, Trinan has the ability to take that, no question. He was one of the best in the game, if not the best. So being able to put different guys in different spots and where the numbers truly match up, they haven't been able to do that in the past because it's been Kenley's 9th. Yeah. And I think now it's just going to play even better.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. We're going to talk a little bit about the needs in the bullpen, but with all the injuries they've dealt with, for them to be able to find a couple guys back there that you trust. Now, we're going to talk, do they have enough guys you trust back there? But I'm with you. The versatility to see those guys, Almonte, Phillips, have to be in uncomfortable situations. I like the way you put it. All right, observation number 3 for me is talking about some of the things we've hinted at, which are the injuries. Are the Dodgers' injuries going to be a problem for them long term? You look at the top of this roster, Walker Buehler, question mark. Blake Trinan, question mark. We think we're getting Blake Trinan back. We hope we're getting Blake Trinan back, but they've been very mysterious about what the injury was and what he's been up to. But their best starter, their best reliever coming into the season are out. You could add to that list Chris Taylor, who's been injured, Danny Duffy, Tommy Kahnle, Victor Gonzalez, Andrew Heaney, Dustin May, Edwin Rios. Lots of potential on that list. Lots of guys that you trust if they're healthy, but the if they're healthy part is a big one. And so with the trade deadline a couple weeks away, and we're going to get into this in just a little bit, I wonder how the Dodgers are going to handle this. Are they going to gamble on some of the names I just mentioned coming back and being the contributors we think and hope they can be? Or are they going to say, we need to be proactive and we need to go and get some of these guys? Can Tony Gonsolin and Tyler Anderson sustain this? I almost said Tony Anderson. Can Tony Gonsolin and Tyler Anderson sustain this? Can they continue to pick up the slack for a guy like Walker Buehler who's not there? Can Evan Phillips sustain this and pick up the slack for Blake Trinan who's not there? Can Jake Lamb continue to sustain this to pick up the slack for Chris Taylor who's not there? These are huge questions the Dodgers need to answer. And so Dodgers injuries, yes, they're 60-30 and everything's kumbaya and happy, but it is worth noting there's a little bit of this. The bridge isn't quite as sturdy and stable as you'd like to be. There's a little shaky parts where you say, can they really do this without Walker Buehler? Can they really do this if Blake Trinan's injury is more of a problem than we think? And so for me, Dodgers injuries becoming a concern. Are you worried about the Dodgers injuries at all, Scott?
I'm really not.
Okay.
I'm really not. I can explain, just like, there's a lot to it. Just like we said, those injuries used to be that, when are we getting those guys back? I just want, I'm focused on, the guys that are here and that they're producing so well And I understand that, a lot of the arms will be at the career highs. Tony Gonsolin will blow past his career highs. And I appreciate that, they're not just, letting it ride with him.
Yeah.
They're understanding and keeping guys, at bay a little bit. But the injuries, they're all going to be able to work on their own timeline. Yeah, we're not reeling without Blake Treinen. We're not, underwater without Walker Buehler. He's able to, we haven't heard anything about him. And, it's no disrespect to Walker Buehler. I really hope we get him back soon. Everything's okay. But I haven't heard anyone, banging the table like he's got to be back. You need to rush him back. And that's, that for me, I think Rios will be back fairly soon. Chris Taylor, they're, after the All-Star break?
So, Taylor, it seems like, the Taylor piece is fascinating, reading the quotes on that one where it's like, well, it might be a pain tolerance thing. We might have to get another scan. Rios, I believe, isn't due back until the beginning of August at the earliest. But I think that the report on him was that the hamstring had torn off of the bone or something like that. So, who knows with Rios? He has not started. Some of these guys, Dustin May, Andrew Heaney, have started to pitch a little bit. Mixed success with those two guys coming back. But, so we'll see. To your point, the Dodgers are 60-30 without these guys. And so to make it seem like they can't do that again in the second half just because they're injured seems to be foolish. All right, last observation for you is a couple of the names that we're used to seeing as kind of the guys carrying the load, Justin Turner, Max Muncy, among others who have been a bit slow. So talk to me a little bit of what you've seen from those two guys.
Yeah, so, Justin Turner, historically slow starter. I don't know if it has to do with, friend of the show, friend of Dodger Blue. We love Justin Turner, but, historically slow starter. And maybe it just got a little bit slower this year, maybe with some age like fine wine. And he's just turned it on as of late. He's showing who he is. But, there was a little bit of a concern that he wasn't going to flip the switch. And he's kind of done it as of late, pushed down the order a little bit, finding his role. And that's, a lot of the credit to, who he is as a veteran hitter. And I just, he was getting beat a lot with the fastball, but he's taken a lot of what's coming to him and a lot of the traffic that will be there now. Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, a lot of these patient hitters, these guys that they don't strike out. It's just going to benefit Justin Turner. And there was just a little bit of concern that he wasn't, wasn't getting enough bat to ball, a lot of soft contact, striking out a good bit, not able to produce. He was still putting up RBI, but he just wasn't getting on base at a high clip. He just didn't look like who he was, but he's turned it on as of late. So it's still, I still need to see the consistency. Yeah. But kind of the elephant in the room, Max Muncy. Yeah. We're just so used to him. And it's become that, when he comes up to the plate, it's either, he's going to put up an at-bat, walk. He's second in the entire league in walks. Yeah. He's got a 316 on base,
which is hilarious because the guy can't hit. So it's like, as a pitcher, just throw him strikes, force him to beat you inside of the strike zone. It amazes me that guys can't throw strikes against it, but that's neither here nor there.
Yep. So I'm sure they still respect him. I'm sure they still respect him as a power hitter, which you have to, the other day he's had a few at bats that just the last show we had, there's some at bats, as a fan, you watch enough, you see these moments where a guy just, has something and it has a time and something looks like it just clicks. Yeah. Well, against, Giovanni Gallegos against the Cardinals in the game that they came back, and it was the third game of that series, he had the at bat that he took some pitches that looked like, I want to say prime Max Muncy, but, like when he was just, at his peak, 18, 19, 20, that looked like he was so dialed in. Ball out of the hand was a competitive pitch. He didn't even budge. It ended up getting the sac fly, tied the game. They go on to win. It was just incredible. So, it's unfortunate that we have to talk about, finding consistency from Justin Turner, Max Muncy, but there's moments from these guys that have really showed on them coming on as of late. And to what you said about, why not just throw him strikes? Well, against the Angels, Jose Suarez threw a 2-0 fastball. Max Muncy pimped it. And then, that he's a confidence guy. Max Muncy's a huge confidence guy, and he's honest in his interviews. And I appreciate that so much about him, that when he's going through it, he'll tell you he's going through it. And that's, it's not tough to see. But I think that with this little bit of break, we saw what that 2-week, shutdown did for him. He came back, had the, hot start and win Chicago against the White Sox. And I think this little the All-Star break, and I wish he was a part of it, but he's not. I think this could do, wonders for him.
Yeah, just clear his head.
100%. So
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, looking at Turner, look, I have been on the wrong side of this one all year. I was skeptical of Turner, and I believed in Muncie. I said, Muncie, I believe in. He's going to figure it out. Justin Turner, I'm not so sure. Justin Turner, the last month, in the month of July, so 14 games, 388, batting average, 475 slug, 475 on base, 531 slug, and OPS over 1,000. Unfortunately for Muncie, it's going the other direction. July, the worst batting average he's had of any month this season. He's hitting 128. The on-base percentage, as you said, he's still walking a little bit, but man, 128. He does have 3 home runs, does have 2 doubles, 19 strikeouts in just 39 at-bats, though. So striking out in 50% of his at-bats in the month of July. 2 guys we haven't even mentioned, Cody Bellinger, Chris Taylor. I'll just ask you. I mean, Cody Bellinger, we always look at Muncie and say he's going to figure it out. Do you think we've just gotten to the point with Bellinger that this is who he is, and nobody's expecting above average offensively Cody Bellinger to ever come back? Or where are you at on him?
Oh man, no. It's just I have this conversation, I think multiple times a week, in-depth conversation with people who ask me. I still can't believe that Cody Bellinger won an MVP.
Yeah, it's crazy.
2019, right? And so that where we feel that far removed from him as a hitter. He's going to be a platinum glove guy. Yeah. He could do it at multiple positions. Is this what we're doing now? Before it was, he's a heart of the order bat. He's hitting 40 bombs a year, 100 RBI. And I guess, this is who he is, platinum glover. I'm fine with that. He's got to be in there for defense. I think.
Yeah. I mean, we're coming up on, do you want to pay this guy $18.5, $19 million next year? Because he's got one more year of team control. He's making $17 million this year. And the way arbitration works, the number has to go up. So it's at 17 now. They're going to have to make, now it's a 1-year deal. So, I would bet that they just decide to pay him and figure it out later. Yep. But I can't imagine that the long-term contract that everybody was sort of saving their pennies for 3 or 4 years ago, it's going to be a lot different. But the heart of it's been so fascinating because you and I talked about this right before coming on. The 1 through 4 is elite. It's the best 1 through 4 in baseball. I don't think it's questionable. Maybe the Yankees, they're good, but I mean, the Dodgers, 4 guys in the top 13 in wins above replacement. The 9-hitter, best 9-hitter in baseball. The problem is 5, 6, 7, and 8 have been sort of a wasteland for the Dodgers. Justin Turner picking it up a little bit. You could slot him into the 5 spot. You feel a little bit better. But Muncie, Taylor, Bellinger, Trace Thompson, whoever you throw in that middle slot, Hanser Alberto, whatever, it hasn't been great. So the Dodgers are making it work. You'd rather have a great 1 through 4 than a great 5 through 8, in my estimation. And so the top of the lineup, the pitching has been good enough to carry them. And so we'll see what happens from here. Let's shift gears a little bit and let's talk trade needs. We just did all these observations. We talked about holes in the lineup, holes in the bullpen, that kind of a thing. And with an August 2nd trade deadline coming up, I think let's go position by position. Scott, Daniel Starkin and I did a long conversation about this, ran through a bunch of names. But I'll ask you, in the bullpen, do you think there's a need? Here are the guys that I would say I have some degree of trust in right now. Evan Phillips, Craig Kimbrell, Yency Almonte, Alex Vesia, Caleb Ferguson, Brusdar Graterol, although Graterol has a shoulder injury at the moment. Guys I did not mention, David Price, Phil Bickford, who has struggled of late, those types of players. You've, of course, got Trinan, Canley, Duffy, Gonzalez, whoever doesn't make the 5-man rotation out there as well. When you hear that list, when you look at the Dodgers roster, starting with the bullpen, do you think the Dodgers need to go and add a late inning relief pitcher?
I think they will look for a guy that is not on the top end.
Yeah.
I will think they will look for, someone that there's, some overwhelming metric that they can just, something that's glaring that they can flip a switch, change some usage. And that's who they'll go for. You want to know what I hope they do? I have a few. So, we just saw him, David Robertson. They just, Dodgers just had a big comeback up against him. That was, fantastic. I think he's still, top end. His numbers, speak for itself. But I think he could be really useful. Just like I said, bullpen versatility. I think David Robertson, he's done it at a high level for a really, really long time. He's 37. I don't think the cost would be too high. I like versatility. I like being able to plug guys in different spots. They've got that in them to do that. Another one that, let's go call Miami. Let's ask about Anthony Bass. He's a middle of the order, middle relief guy. He's been incredible. And Will Crow from the Pirates. A lot of guys have eaten a lot of innings this year. I think Will Crow has the most innings, most batters faced of any relief pitcher.
Okay.
It's not 100% need, but again, a lot of it's hinging on Blake Trinan and what he's going to produce, or where they feel like they're going to slot Dustin May. I know they'd like to put him in the bullpen or in the rotation. Where are you going to find those innings?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you look at in a postseason, you're typically carrying about 9 relief pitchers and 4 starting pitchers. The group I just mentioned, Phillips, Kimbrell, Almonte, Vesia, Ferguson, there's 5. Gratterall, again, shoulder injury. So I think, they said it was a side injury. I felt good. Then they changed it to a shoulder injury. I felt less good. And then so that's, even if Gratterall comes back, there's 6 guys. Then you've got Trinan, Canely, Duffy, Gonzalez, Mitch White, Dustin May, Andrew Heaney, those types. To me, bullpen is the biggest need. We've talked about it. I'm not going to keep repeating myself. The Dodgers have a glut of prospects who are either on the 40-man or need to get added to the 40-man. I think they should go out and get a David Robertson. I don't know if Arizona would trade, but I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. But Mantiply, I like him. He fits. I think his walk rate is like 0.0 something. Like he never walks anybody. That fits the Dodgers MO. And so a guy like that, I don't think they need to go get the Bednar or the Hader necessarily, but I think they can go and get a guy that you can plug into the 7th, the 8th. Trust Phillips with 1, trust Kimbrell, and hope you get Trinan back. Moving on to the offense. Do they need to get a bat? 2 weeks ago when we were doing this, it was like, hey, look at Trace Thompson. Look at Jake Lamb. They're amazing. Trace Thompson, 2 for his last 16 last week. The average is down to 220. On base, 293. Slugging, 368. That's pretty much career averages. This is pretty much the guy that he has been his entire career. The good news, Jake Lamb has been better. 233 batting average, but a 361 on base and a 533 slugging percentage. We mentioned Rios. The earliest he could come off is August 2nd. There's no guarantee that he'll be coming off the 60-day IL then. Chris Taylor started activity a few days ago. Still lots of question marks there. Hanser Alberto hasn't been good. Kevin Pillar is injured. I think really, to me, Scott, this question comes down to, do the Dodgers need offense, comes down to what sort of confidence do you have in Miguel Vargas or Michael Busch being able to come up and contribute at some point? If the answer to that question, I asked Justin Lorber on our live show last night when we did the draft, and if the answer is I trust one or both of those guys to be competent major league hitters, like I'm talking about give me a 320 on base percentage type guy, then I think you're fine offensively. If you don't think those guys are ready or you don't want to bet on them, then with Trace Thompson regressing, Hanser Alberto not really improving, I think we're nearing the point where you need to go get a guy that can play the Trace Thompson role but do better than he's doing right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Miguel Vargas guy. I do think that they need, a lot. There's so many things connected. If those bench guys like Trace Thompson's a Band-Aid. He's not a long-term guy. It's a great. He's
Band-Aid is starting to fall off.
Band-Aid's starting to fall off. He's fantastic that he's back. It's cool. It's I'm really enjoying that. But they do need some help there. And I think that a bat will be much easier to acquire than an arm. They usually always are. They just haven't been really, aggressive in the offensive market recently. And like in the last few years, it's usually just been pitching. But if we want to go like the top end, Brandon Drury, that's just tough because you need to get these guys players like that. You have to find like regular at bats for them. Yep. And that's just what you look at. If you want to get like a platoon guy, like a Robbie Grossman, but it's a lot of spots where you have to, are you going to call up Miguel Vargas and start the clock just to give him, how many at bats a week are you really giving him? Are you going to put him? He's barely started playing the outfield. You don't really have an infield spot for him. I wish you did, but Justin Turner, is produced.
Yeah, so Turner's figured it out.
He is fighting off father time and keeping my baby Miguel Vargas in the minors. And
Lux isn't the answer in left field. We figured that out. So it does need to be a guy who can play left field.
100%. So it's a lot of it. I think they'll just go for someone who is coming off the bench, maybe in their current situation, or getting a few at bats a week, or has done that in the past. And they definitely do need help. I really wish Edwin Rios can come back, because he was really advancing as a hitter. He was hitting left-handed pitching, and that was fantastic. We got to see. You know, I don't know if they see offense as much of a need, but I definitely think they need to find someone. I'm very over them getting shut down by average to below average left-handed pitching, no matter who it is. Like Jose Quintana shoving them, you know, a couple months ago just sticks with me, and I can't get over it.
Yeah.
So it's just, they do need to do that, because we see them, you know, there's teams out there with the Braves have, and Max Fried. They have nobody out there that's going to kill left-handed pitching.
Yeah.
It.
No, I agree. I think, and like you said, that's the cheapest, easiest position to go and acquire. And so I think it comes down to the Dodgers doing a little self sort of analysis and saying, all right, do we believe in Trace Thompson? Do we believe in Jake Lamb? Do we believe in Edwin Rios' health? Do we believe in Hanser Alberto? Do we believe in Michael Busch and Miguel Vargas? Do we believe in, you know, these guys being able to contribute? Chris Taylor, what's his health situation? Because you've got to find 2 or 3 guys from that group that we just mentioned who can contribute. We know Austin Barnes is going to be on the postseason roster. Offensively, he's not bringing you much. So the other 2 or 3 bench spots that you've got, 3 bench spots, you've got to make those count. You've got to make those count in the postseason, and so we'll see what happens. Okay, last one here is starting pitching. We know the Dodgers have been connected to Luis Castillo. For me, I know I'm on an island, it seems like, on this one. Maybe you and I are in agreement. I don't think the Dodgers need starting pitching. This would not be the area that I would prioritize. I would much rather go add a couple bullpen arms, and maybe a guy in the outfield that you trust that can platoon. Your point is great, by the way, that it needs to be someone who's comfortable not playing every day, because the Dodgers have a full lineup when things are humming. Do you think they need to go get a starter? Do you believe in Clayton Kershaw, Urias, Gonsolin, Anderson to be sort of the 4 guys that carry you into the postseason? Where are you at on this one?
So if they go get, you know, if they do that, they have to push people to a longer rotation. I think they would be at what? It would push them to a 6.
Yeah, I mean, you've got May, Heaney, White, all guys that are sort of not healthy or not quite ready, but sort of in the mix. So you've got 4 guys right now who are healthy, plus Mitch White, and then you've got May and Heaney presumably coming back at some point in the next 1 to 2 months.
Okay, we can work this out. All right. So they definitely can. I think Mitch White, his little breakout, I think that little breakout, and then the inevitable clunker, which just, that's just against the talented team. I don't think anybody should be surprised by that. The Cardinals have a fantastic top half. Let's not forget Goldschmidt, Arenado, Tommy Edman. Tommy Edman's amazing. So it's just talented hitters. It happens. So I think Mitch White, having that little breakout could show that he can come in multi-relief. I don't think he's destined for starting pitching long term, but they definitely could acquire a front end starter. And you can never have too much starting pitching. So if you're, up against the wall, you're telling me, deals on the table, Luis Castillo, or another top end arm. I'm kind of iffy on Frankie Montas at the moment with his some injury concerns. I don't really like giving up prospect capital for a guy who have that, and I don't think they would do that either. I would do it.
Yeah.
If the cost is there, we've got all these prospects, 40 man, you have to clear some room, add some guys. I think if it's there, and it's a good thing, but there's a Dodgers tax with the Cincinnati Reds. Let's not forget. So I would do it if it's there. Because Andrew Heaney I think he was striking out at an incredible clip. If he's healthy, I think you could push him into the bullpen or multi-inning guys, versatility. It's all goes to that. So I think that with May, it would play so much better. It would help them out so much better. It wouldn't put them in such pressure situations to start and have to get so many innings out of them. And I think that would ease some pressure on them, because they are coming off of injury and they don't have to build them up as much. I would do it. I'm sorry. I like the acquiring the big arm. I like that. That's my thing. When they got Rich Hill a few years ago, Rich Hill was on fire. Max Scherzer, Yu Darvish. I like that. I
get it. And I mean, it's funny because I realized Walker Buehler was not a name we mentioned at any point during that conversation.
Crazy, right?
Crazy. So for me, here's how I do the math here. They've got 4 guys that I trust right now: Kershaw, Urias, Gonsolin, and Anderson. I think you could reasonably assume that 3 of those 4 are going to be guys that you can count on come October. Now, I don't know if it's a Kershaw injury, if it's a Gonsolin regression, if it's an Anderson regression. I feel okay saying 3 of those 4 are going to be fine. So then the question to me is you look at the rest of that group and say, can I find 2 guys I trust out of Walker Buehler whenever he comes back, Dustin May whenever he comes back, Andrew Heaney whenever he comes back, Mitch White, and then even Ryan Pepio, Michael Grove, some of the prospect types. Can I find 2 guys that I trust there? To me, the answer is yes. To me, the answer is I think, and look, if you get 4 of 4, if Kershaw, Urias, Gonsolin, Anderson all continue, and then you're only needing 1 out of May and Buehler and Heaney. So to me, I know they need to deal some prospects. Luis Castillo, I'm not sure the numbers, the StatCast stuff move the needle quite enough for me. So for me, I would say bullpen is the number 1 need for me. I think going and getting a bat, obviously, I'm not talking about prospect capital. I'm just saying going and getting somebody that we can trust to platoon with the Jake Lamb in left field or to be a bench bat once Chris Taylor comes back. Those would be my top 2 priorities. Starting pitcher would be 3rd for me. How would you rank bullpen, bat, and starter as far as your wish list, your priority list?
All right. I would say bullpen 1.
Okay.
Bat 2, starting pitcher 3. But
Okay.
what I think that my reasoning for that is that, or my reasoning for starting pitching being number 3, but it's also the one that I would like them to do because I think it would flip with my theory that it would help ease the pressure on all those other guys that are coming back. Then it would flip. Then that's exactly it. Because this is the thing why it makes sense to me is that you have these prospects that they need to move are top end guys.
Yeah.
You're not going to move top end prospects they don't do that. You don't do that for bullpen. You don't give up a ton of capital. You saw what that happened with Chapman, and then he went back and signed with the Yankees.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just you just don't do that. I don't think they should. I don't think they will either. And there's just not a bat out there that you're going to give that up for. If you're going to give up your top end prospects, it will be for a starting pitcher. And who knows, you might be able to get that bat in there. I mean, a package with Castillo and Drury would be a lot, but it would be worth it. It would be worth it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the point too, adding a starter might solve some of your bullpen issues as well. If you can get some length, move a couple of those, does Walker Buehler come back in a bullpen role? Does Dustin May come back in a bullpen role? Does Andrew Heaney come back in a bullpen role to ease some of the stress? I think that's totally reasonable. All right, we got 2 more things to get to. The first one is the thing that some people have probably been waiting to. Juan Soto. The question I've got here is how much is too much for Juan Soto? Let me give you some numbers from Juan Soto because I did some digging just on, look, we know everyone talks about how amazing he is. I've made the comparison to Miguel Cabrera, who's gone on to have a Hall of Fame career, one of the best hitters of all time. And I looked at how did Juan Soto as a young person compare to Miguel Cabrera as a young person. Wins above replacement is what I'm using. So if you've got quabbles with Fangraphs WAR, I apologize. As a 19-year-old, Juan Soto put up 3.7 wins above replacement. As a 19-year-old, Miguel Cabrera was not in the major leagues. As a 20-year-old, Juan Soto put up 5.7 wins above replacement. Miguel Cabrera made his debut, his 20-year-old season, 0.8 wins above replacement. As a 21-year-old, Juan Soto put up 2.5 wins above replacement in a 60-game season. So you multiply that out, he plays 150 games. That's over 7 wins above replacement. Miguel Cabrera, as a 21-year-old, put up 2.3. So as a 21-year-old, if he plays a full season in that shortened year, we're talking about a guy who's already above 15 wins above replacement as a 21-year-old. Miguel Cabrera at that point was at 3.1. Okay, as a 22-year-old, Soto puts up 7 wins above replacement. Miguel Cabrera, 5.1. As a 23-year-old, Soto on pace for a down year, 5.2 wins above replacement. Cabrera, 6.3. Cabrera was traded after his 24-year-old season with 5 wins above replacement. Here's the thing with Cabrera. Cabrera, over the next 9 seasons, so through the age of 33, put up 51.1 wins above replacement, averaging almost 6 wins above replacement per year. Juan Soto, in my estimation, is better than Miguel Cabrera was at that point. If you could get Juan Soto through his age 33, now we're talking about needing to get him through his age 38 season, but if we're talking about the 10-year prime, which Juan Soto has not hit yet, by the way, if you can get that, to me, as ridiculous as some of the trade packages you are going to hear are going to sound, to me, it is absolutely worth it. So here's the question. I'll ask you a quick one here. I know this is a bigger conversation, but I looked at it when I talked to Justin Lorber, our prospect guy, last night. There's sort of 9 high-level trade assets that I think the Dodgers have. 9 high-level trade assets. Some of them are at the major league level already. Some of them are not. At the major league level, you've got Dustin May, Gavin Lux, and Tony Gonsolin. I think those are the three young guys on cost-controlled deals, lots of team control, who have proven that they can do something at the major league level. At the minor league level, you've got 6 guys that are top 100 prospects basically everywhere you look. That's Bobby Miller, Diego Cartaya, Michael Busch, Ryan Pepio, Miguel Vargas, and Andy Pages. Those 9, I think, are the elite trade pieces the Dodgers have.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some of the cost is going to depend on do the Nationals want to dump Strasburg's 4 years and $140 million left after this year? Do they want to dump Patrick Corbin's 2 years, $59 million left? But let's just presume that it's just for Juan Soto. You're not taking back a bad contract. Of the 9 trade assets that I just mentioned, is there a number that you say, I can't do more than this? Would you give up 6 of those guys? Would you give up 7 of those guys? How do you sort of parse that out? Because we're talking about a generational player. We can't compare this to any other trade because you're talking about a guy who's got 2.5 years of team control and then the hope and the anticipation that you would be able to sign him for another 12 years after that.
Yeah. So how much is too much? I mean, it's not a question mark. It's a guarantee of who you're getting. Yeah. You know who you're getting. You're getting just like we spoke about the last time. You're getting 2 comps are like, better than Miguel Cabrera. Comp is Barry Bonds and Ted Williams.
Yeah.
Into 1. So how much is too much? I mean, with a guy who's a guaranteed superstar, a generational guy. I mean, geez, man. You're getting, if you're trading for him now, you're doing that with the assumption that you're just going to sign him long term. How much is too much? Oh man.
Would you give up 6 of those guys for him?
Jeez.
If they said we want all 6 of the top 100 prospects, we want
6
Bobby Miller,
100.
Cartaya, Busch, Pepio, Vargas, and Pages.
Nothing else.
Just those 6.
Man.
For Juan Soto, you're not taking any bad contracts back.
Yeah.
Okay. If they said, and we want to add Gavin Lux to that trade package also.
No.
Okay. So 6 is where you draw the line. And I'm guessing there's probably, now let me ask you one last question. May, Lux, Gonsolin, Miller, Cartaya, Busch, Pepio, Vargas, Pages. Who are the top 2 or 3 guys in that list from your perspective? Like Justin says Dustin May is still the top guy on his list in that group. Yeah. Obviously, we've seen what Tony Gonsolin has done, Gavin Lux, but then you've got Cartaya, who could be a number 1 overall prospect. Give me your top 2 out of that group. If they said, we'll take 7, we'll let you pick which 7. Who are the 2 guys that you're like, I want these 2?
Oh, Dustin May, and I think Cartaya is a special player. Yeah. I mean, did Justin take it? Did he say yeah?
He's in. He's all in. He wants to sell the farm, and it's like Juan Soto, the whole deal. So, but I think he's with you. He's got Cartaya is going to be the number 1 prospect in the system. Dustin May, I think, is up there. I think Gonsolin's the other guy. Gonsolin's older, but you're also seeing him do it at the major league level, and that's what makes it hard. Like he's legit. He's an all-star.
Yeah,
so
it's massive lead.
What you believe about that, I think is interesting. But yeah, I mean, and all the one last thing, and I said this on the show last night. Some people are like, well, when Miguel Cabrera was being traded, they called the Dodgers and they asked for Clayton Kershaw, Matt Kemp as the headliners. The Dodgers said no to that. The other guys involved were Andy LaRoche, Chad Billingsley, those types of names. There were 5 guys that were mentioned. And look, I'm not going to get into the Kershaw thing. I'm glad we have Clayton Kershaw, all right? Like, I'm not arguing about that. But the other 4 guys that were mentioned as elite prospects, none of them panned out. The Tigers sent 2 top 10 prospects in all of baseball, Andrew Miller, and I believe it was Cameron Maybin, to the Marlins. Neither of them panned out. And so we just have to remember that as crazy as it sounds, we have to remember how good Juan Soto is and what the hit rate is. Gavin Lux was a top 5 prospect. A lot of you that are watching that are mad about how many prospects we're trading would ship Gavin Lux out of here in a heartbeat because you think he's a bust. And so there's just never a guarantee. Even Dustin May, like, look at the health thing. He's got all the talent in the world. He might figure it out. That's not a guarantee. The last piece, Justin noted this, and I think it's important. Look, the Dodgers could trade 6 of these guys, and their farm system a year and a half from now would be totally fine. They are so loaded at specifically with pitching prospects. They are so loaded that if you can add Juan Soto to Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts and Will Smith and that's your core that you're going to build around for the next 4 years. Who knows with Trey Turner and the rest of these guys. But if those 4 guys are at the core of your lineup for the next 6 years, sign me up. Sign me up.
Yeah,
You're going to be the best team in baseball or in the conversation every year.
Yeah, so without a doubt, I mean, you've seen how they've done it the past few years. They just exclusively drafted pitching for the most part because you look at the major league roster, there's nothing but hitting. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. They guys that are up there are not going anywhere for the most part. So the pieces, and it's, you pay for bats and you do your best to avoid having to pay pitchers.
Yeah.
And you keep the ones that are at the top end, Clayton Kershaw, and we'll get to the other thing that'll be difficult. I really don't want to have that conversation of when do we re-sign him and everything. But I'm with Justin. I think that if it's there, sell it, do it.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah. It's just like you said, a few years. Their player development is top of the food chain, and I don't think anybody would be surprised if the Dodgers would be right back up there if you just took the top 6. Enjoy Washington now.
Yeah,
it's just they're
going to be the Dodgers farm system over there with Josiah Gray and Keibert Ruiz. All the Dodgers prospects, without
a doubt. And this is just how they do it. It's just 100% how they do it. I was speaking with somebody on Twitter the other day that what's crazy about the Dodgers organization is if there's any bad contracts or there's any huge contracts, the Dodgers don't trade a franchise player because they have, say, a contract situation or a bad contract. They don't do that. They work around that.
Yeah.
They understand that there's these proven superstars, proven players that you don't have to guess on. And when you have something that's a surefire at the big league level, you keep it or you acquire it. And that's what you do. And I'm a Justin. Yeah. You ship it, man. Let's, bring him in.
Let's go get Juan Soto. All right, let's close. I got 7 rest of season rapid fire prediction questions for you, Scott. And we'll start with the biggest one. The Dodgers are currently on 108 win pace. They're winning 2/3 of their games. Since going to 162 games, the franchise record is 106. The 2020 team won 71.7% of their games, which is absurd. The Brooklyn Dodgers had a higher winning percentage a few times, but they could set the franchise record for wins. Again, on 108 win pace. I will set the over-under at 107.5. Do you think the Dodgers go over or under 107.5 wins this season?
Over.
Okay. I'm going to say slightly under. I'm going to say if there's no divisional race, I think they cool the Jets a little bit, and maybe this ends around 105, but that's me. Okay, season ends. Who leads the Dodgers in wins above replacement on the position players side? Freddie Freeman currently in first, Trey Turner in second, Mookie Betts in third.
I think Freddie Freeman.
Yeah, I'm going with him too. Consistency, just day in and day out, every month. There's no highs, there's no lows. It's just everything the same.
Beautiful.
Season-ending leader in ERA among starters is who? Gonsolin currently leading this category. Clayton Kershaw not too far behind.
Clayton Kershaw.
Okay. Yeah, I think so too. And that's not an anti-Gonsolin thing.
No, it's an innings thing. It's definitely an innings thing. We saw how one little tiny blip can change that. Man, I really wish that Gonsolin didn't give up. Sorry to do this. I wish he didn't give up that last run because it would have been like the first starter in big league history to enter the All-Star break, like with undefeated. I think 11 wins, undefeated, and a sub-2 ERA, and I really wanted that for him.
Yeah, 2.02, barely crosses it.
Yep.
Okay, Dodgers currently winning the division by 10 games. Over under division lead at the end of the season, 9.5.
Over.
Okay, I'm going to say under. I think the Padres, I think the Dodgers just cruise the last few weeks of the season, rest some guys, and that ends up somewhere in the 8. I don't think it's ever going to be up for debate. Do the Dodgers win the National League? I believe I said they currently have a 3.5 game lead over the Mets for best record in the National League. So regular season, do they finish with the number 1 seed in the National League?
Yes.
Okay, yes for me as well. Okay, last one, 2 here. I'm going to ask you for a guy who you think regresses a little bit in the second half and a guy who you think turns it around and improves a little bit in the second half. I'll let you answer whichever one of those ones you want to first. A guy who regresses a little bit and then a guy who turns it around.
Pitching and hitting?
Yeah, whoever you want. Full cupboard here. I'll go first because I'll let you give you some time. Turn it around. If you watch a show, you have no doubt who I'm about to say. It's Craig Kimbrell. I think he figures it out at some point. You and I, again, we're hanging on to the bandwagon. So I think he turns it around. A guy who regresses a bit in the second half, I think, is Yency Almonte. I mean, look, 1.40 is not sustainable. I think he probably ends somewhere in the mid to high twos, which might look ugly for a couple of months, but I think he's fine. I just don't think he's a back-end bullpen arm necessarily.
Okay. I think Julio turns it on a little bit.
There we go. I was afraid you were going to say regresses. Julio's
no. I think Julio turns it on a little bit. He's done, I think he's done this for too long. Let's see, it's wild. He's still a kid. I think he turns it on a little bit, and that's, what's crazy is that he's
he had one bad start. I mean, people are making it seem like he's terrible. This guy should have been an all-star. He had better numbers than Tyler Anderson up until one bad start. So
yeah,
I like that one.
Yeah, sub 3 ERA. Like we're talking like he blew it up. It's insane. So I think Julio turns it on a little bit. I think he locks it in. He's just giving up a little bit too many homers, leaving a couple balls, going a little too middle. Maybe he's just trying to force him in there. I'm not sure, and it's not even doing as much damage as we think. I think he turns it on a little bit. Regression wise, man, I really don't want to say Yency. I'm kind of going to stay away from the bullpen, but there's offensively, geez.
Do you think Gavin Lux potential, like, is he regress a little bit? Does Justin Turner, like, is this last month of the season sustainable? Obviously Gonsolin, Anderson, guys that most people would probably have in the conversation for people who could regress.
I'm going to go TBD. I really don't have, I don't have one that is like a surefire regression. I haven't seen anyone. Like, it's easy to just, Max Muncy's at the bottom of the barrel, like any improvements that, I can't even say that. So TBD, I really don't have anyone. Maybe Tyler Anderson, a slight bit, but I really don't have anyone that's a surefire.
All right. Well, folks watching, let us know in the comments. Here are the questions. Over under 107.5 wins. Season-ending leader in wins above replacement. Season-ending leader in ERA among starters. Over under 9.5 game lead in the division by the end of the season. Are the Dodgers the number one seed in the National League heading into the playoffs? And is there a guy who regresses a little bit in the second half? Is there a guy that you're picking to improve in the second half? Those are our questions. Hey, we appreciate you guys joining us as always. If you're watching us on YouTube, please make sure you subscribe, ring the notification bell, and hey, send this video to a friend. Let some folks know you got Dodger fans in your life. Say, hey, check this out. Next time you're home, pop on YouTube. Check us out on podcasts. If you're a podcast person, if your friend is a podcast person, let them know they can find us. Search DodgerHeads on Spotify, Apple, Google. Please follow, rate, and review. We'd greatly appreciate that. Of course, DodgerBlue.com has all the latest. That's where you can find Scott's work, DodgerBlue1958 on social media as well. Scott, we appreciate you joining us. Enjoy the All-Star break as we gear up for the second half of the season. Everybody else, thank you for joining us. Enjoy the break. We'll have some content for you over the coming days. We'll have a live post-game show later in the week. So you won't miss us too much, I promise. Enjoy the home run derby. Go Corey Seager, right? We're rooting for Corey Seager, right, Scott?
Yeah, we are. We'll say that. Yeah, we are.
There we go. All right. Well, enjoy, everybody. We'll see you next time.